boxing,
beats and rhymes.
No one
can do it better.
In all fairness, it was in 2017 when Anthony Joshua was still undefeated, coming off unifying the belts against Vladimir Klitschko. Around that time, Ward stopped Sergey Kovalev in their rematch. And back then, he stated his desire to fight Anthony Joshua. So Ward and Virgil Hunter have been seeing flaws in AJ's style that's led them to believing that they could be competitive and win this fight. So it's nothing new.
Nothing new. Them not saying nothing new.
So it's not like Ward waited until AJ lost to Ruiz, then started getting bold. He called him out while he was undefeated. An unusual call out that I'm not sure many people took serious. Recently, he said a fight with AJ would have been easier than a fight with Joe Calzaghe. That's a fight we never got because Ward was just emerging as a super middleweight contender when Joe retired. Joe's last couple of fights were at light heavy, so we never got that fight. I don't know if you know my channel very well, but I rank Joe Calzaghe very highly. But there's no way a fight for anybody with Joe Calzaghe is going to be harder than a fight with Anthony Joshua. There's just no way. I'm not dismissing Andre Ward's challenge. James Toney started at 160. Just like Roy Jones, James picked off a weak champion at heavyweight in John Ruiz. Then he got stripped for roids. James, I don't know if he's smaller than Ward. He's shorter. He's definitely shorter. They both started their pro careers at 160. But apparently James was very hench even before turning pro because he used to play American football. You know, James Toney, who won his first title at 160, he fought Sam Peter twice. The first time he nearly beat him. Split decision lost. Sam Peter actually went on to become a world champion. James also lost the majority to Hasim Rutman, outpointed Dominic Gwynn, who was a good French contender at the time, knocked out Evander Holyfield. James Toney won the cruiserweight title from Vasily Girov, and when he was way past his prime, at 200 pounds, he lost decisions to Denis Lebedev, who was a very good puncher. So it can be done. And I'm not going to go back to Harry Greb's day because some people are going to be in the comment section, oh, the heavyweights were really small back then and blah, blah, blah. Although Harry Greb, middleweight champion of the world, did beat Gene Tunney, the future heavyweight champion of the world. Gene Tunney's only defeat as a pro. As far as I'm concerned, Usyk weighs in 220. So I can use the standard size heavyweights of, let's say, post-millennium, who James Toney fought, as a guideline to say, yes, someone who did start at 160 could compete at heavyweight. But Andre Ward, he didn't try to top all the belts at 175. He says it was due to injury. There was one strap to go against Stevenson. Didn't fight him. Retired instead. Didn't fight his mandatory, Beterbiev. A fight a few people wanted to see at the time, although Beterbiev was unproven. He wasn't who he was today. At 168, he won 2 straps after that tournament. But there was still Stieglitz, who had a belt with a WBO, and a Canadian, Butte, IBF champion, I believe. He left a lot of food on the table and made a lot of demands that his market value didn't match. He was one of the pound for pound best in the sport, but his market value didn't match that. And I don't think that ever sat well with Andre Ward. He retired with a controversial win over Kovalev with them dick punches. And he was undefeated 32-0. But that win hasn't aged as well as he would have liked. It hasn't appreciated as he would have liked. And I don't think he's totally content with his career in terms of respect from the media. I think his peers and hardcore boxing fans knew how good he was. And right now he's seeing people like Francis Ngannou come from a different discipline and have probably made just as much as he made in his whole career in 2 fights against Fury and AJ. He's seeing Jake Paul make exorbitant purses against the likes of Chavez, Mike Tyson. He's seeing these influencers, MMA, UFC fighters getting to the bag. And his era came just before all that kicked off. I don't think he's sitting very well with him. I'll just be honest with you. He hasn't beat no cruiserweights or no heavyweights. He's never knocked out any of the light middles or super middleweights spectacularly that would make the casual fan say, maybe he could fight AJ. There's no demand for Andre Ward not only fighting AJ, but anybody really. But he's being swayed by that Saudi money that he's seen paraded out there. It's got a lot of boxers' heads in a twist. Retired boxers are sitting at home thinking, boy, might just glove up and make another run at it. But here's the truth, how a lot of people perceive Andre Ward. They perceive Ward as perhaps a socially awkward guy. That's the word. Boring. Not that he can't articulate himself, but it's straight up and down, no thrills. He's put out books. There was a revelation that when he was a kid, he sold drugs. Ooh, church boy Ward selling drugs. And I believe he revealed them things to make himself a little edgy. Because these days you have to be edgy. You can't be like Joe Louis and have your public image all choreographed out for you. When I read the little article saying Ward used to sell dope, I don't find things cringe like that, but I'm like, lots of people sold dope when they were young. Especially where I grew up, it's no big deal. It's the type of thing you do as a youth, and when that phase is over, you don't bring it up no more. Unless you're a rapper. Then the whole Saudi thing started. Then he started doing a podcast with all these different boxers. And I think that's probably what's triggered him to start talking about this comeback at 41. Like, challenging AJ 8 years ago is totally different challenging AJ now at 41, moving all the way up to heavy. What, does he want to catch weight or something? I would have picked AJ to beat him back then. And I'd certainly pick AJ to destroy him right now. To challenge the heavyweights of today, the punchers. And AJ is definitely one of the modern day punchers. You can say whatever you like, what you think of his resume or his skill set or his accomplishments. He's a puncher. If you're coming up from 160, you're going to need a James Toney-like chin. Ward didn't have a James Toney-like chin. Darnell Boone nearly got him out of there. He done well to recover from that Kovalev right hand. He did. Got off the canvas. But he does not have a James Toney-like chin. He doesn't. If he catches that same combination that AJ dropped Andy Ruiz with, does he get up off the canvas like Andy Ruiz did at 41? He was a very good defensive fighter at 175 and 168, but he was still getting hit, mind you. And even when he was active, unified champion and called out AJ, nobody else was calling for the fight. Nobody. It was a very random announcement. It wasn't even a call out. He was just talking about, I think I could beat AJ. This latest announcement is a call out. He's actually calling him out, saying he wants to fight him. He stated in this latest call out, it's a dangerous fight for his legacy, which inadvertently means it's a great fight for his legacy. But what does it do for AJ's legacy? Beating a 41-year-old former light heavyweight champion who didn't have a good knockout ratio at 168 or 175. Does AJ have the greatest heavyweight chin ever? No. But Ward was not a formidable puncher at 168 or 175. Am I to believe at 41 he can hit AJ any harder than Klitschko did when AJ had to get off the canvas for that fight, or any of the strikes that Daniel Dubois landed on AJ? He's going to hit any harder than that?
I don't think so.
Now, AJ's agreed to the fight, and if it happens, great. The likely outcome is Ward doesn't get past 3 rounds. Now, he's talking about his legacy. He retired at 32-0. You know why he did that? Because the whole thing across the pond was undefeated records. Fighters following that Mayweather blueprint, he retired 32-0 thinking, hey, I'm undefeated. I just did what Floyd did. But that concept hasn't aged as well for Ward as it did for Floyd. Triple G didn't want to move up to 168 to fight Ward, because the likely outcome was he would have been beaten. He was willing to go up to 168 to fight Carl Froch, but not Andre Ward. Kovalev was undefeated. The 2-fight series between Ward and Kovalev was supposed to be the defining fights of Andre Ward's career. Instead, the 2 fights are shrouded in controversy because of the dick punches. And in my opinion, he didn't win the first fight. And I was rooting for him to win. But he got the nod, and it is what it is. You take the breaks as they come and they go. I remember watching the rematch, and he shook Kovalev with a headshot, a legit headshot. And Kovalev was ready to go. And then when he was working Kovalev downstairs, a lot of the punches were legal, but a lot of them were borderline. And I was thinking to myself, stop going to his body, because you're likely to get DQ'd. Or they'll discredit the win, saying you hit him with pure dick punches. I don't know if he got points taken, but the referee did check him a couple of times. But he got the win and done the double over Kovalev. But the fights are shrouded in controversy and left perhaps more questions than answers. And Ward knows how he's perceived by a lot of boxing fans and media. They saw him as a boring fighter. Good, but boring. No personality. He wasn't even like a villain who they were turning up there to see lose. He didn't even have that angle to make him a draw.
You know, Peter was always talking about Ward, most boring fighter in his... Did you ever say that?
I've always said that. I've never enjoyed an Andre Ward fight. And I don't think I've ever seen a full Andre Ward fight. But he was a great fighter.
How could he be a great fighter if you don't want to watch him?
I like knockouts. I like seeing fucking guys get put to sleep.
You don't like headbutts?
I like shit like that.
Ward is talking about Wembley Stadium. He's got it fixed in his mind. Ward also wanted that Carl Froch rematch at Wembley Stadium. He was insistent that the rematch be at Wembley Stadium. He beat Carl in America, and then when there was talk of a rematch, he wanted it at Wembley. Froch was talking about, nah, we can go to Nottingham Arena and have it. Ward wanted to go to Wembley Stadium. But what Ward, in his arrogance, because he is a very arrogant motherfucker, is not understanding, is that George Groves is a homegrown talent. Had a rivalry with James DeGale from the amateurs into the pros. They had that British title fight when they were young, before they was anywhere near fighting for world titles. He was a known quantity amongst the British boxing fraternity. The Wembley Stadium fight with Carl Froch was built on the controversy of the first fight. And then the rematch went to Wembley Stadium and you got the 80,000 crowd. You can't just come over to the UK and expect to be accepted as a pay-per-view draw, especially if you're not a pay-per-view draw in the country you just came from. Now, Errol Spence challenged Kell Brook over here for the IBF title. That was on pay-per-view. It was a stadium fight because Spence was a PBC guy and one of the popular PBC guys. And look, say what you like, that Errol Spence there was brocking up his opponents and stopping them. And Brook had to defend or give up the belt, either or either. Because Andre Ward wouldn't go to Canada to fight Lucien Boutte, although Boutte was the bigger draw. That's why the fight was supposed to happen in Canada. That would have got him to 3 belts, I believe. He allowed Carl Froch to get the fight. Now you have to go and ask Lucien Boutte why he came to Nottingham, but he wouldn't go over to Oakland or wherever Ward wanted to fight. But he came over to the UK and got battered. And it's Ward's fault, because just like people say Eddie Hearn should have paid over the top to get Boots the WBO fight with Brian Norman, that's what Jay Prince should have done with Lucien Boutte. Either go over to Canada or pay him above the odds to come over to Oakland or Vegas or wherever you want the fight. But they didn't do that. And they let Carl Froch back in the game. Then Carl Froch went out to sell out Wembley, and then all of a sudden Ward wants to fight at Wembley. But Froch is thinking he's the A-side right now. He's feeling himself. Froch said he wanted to fight in his hometown, Nottingham. But I'm sure if Eddie Hearn said, look, this is a definite stadium fight, we've got to do it at Wembley, that's what Carl Froch would have did. Andre Ward was promoted by Rock Nation. They could hire out Wembley. They could have said, yo, if Eddie don't want to put it on at Wembley, we'll put it on at Wembley. If you think it's a stadium fight, put it on at Wembley. It's not all on Eddie Hearn. Eddie Hearn makes fights across the pond. Rock Nation can make a fight across the pond. You see, let's say AJ wanted the Ward fight. AJ wouldn't even need Turkey Al Sheikh to get that fight popping. Now, he'd get more bang for his buck by getting Turkey on board, but he doesn't need him. Let's say Turkey's not interested in that fight. And let's say Eddie Hearn is not interested in promoting that fight, but he says, AJ, look, if you want to fight him, we're not going to stop you. Who's Andre Ward got to back him in America? Who?
Nobody.
But Ward has overinflated his market value. And the reason he's doing that is because he is a good fighter and he has beaten good names. But his personality and his boxing style is perceived as boring. That's why it's hard for him to call out AJ. Even back then, when he was 33, people weren't responding to him, calling out no one. Triple G, this guy, that guy. Nobody's responding to him because they didn't see him as a draw or as an attractive proposition for big fights. Now, a lot of people are really getting in their feelings now. All you keep talking about is numbers and numbers. And look, if you're across the pond, it's you guys across the pond who have attached the boring label to this guy, whether it's boxing or his personality. He became a non-box office fighter across the pond, not over here. You could throw out homonyms because you're upset with the situation, but the situation isn't one I made.
And I gotta ask you about this, Abel. A lot of talk about Andre Ward as a trainer. Is that a fight that Gennady eventually is going to have to take? And do you guys take it at 68?
Well, first of all, as a reporter, let me ask you this question. He moves up to 168 and he beats Andre Ward. What does he do next? Klitschko? If he beats Andre Ward, the best fighter in the world, and Mayweather's not willing to fight him, what do we do next? We have no fights. We have no fights. The second thing, on a more real note, Andre hasn't done anything to warrant what his demands will be. This shows you today that Golovkin is becoming the A fighter. For that fight to happen, I think that Andre and Andre's people need to sit at the table with Tom and iron something out that's beneficial, understanding that who is the A fighter and who's the B fighter. And I don't think that's going to happen because I think Andre thinks more of himself than he really is at this moment. He's a great fighter, but he's not a draw.
I haven't got the numbers. You guys in the comment section, you tell me, who was the bigger draw around this time, 2015, out of Andre Ward and Golovkin? Probably was Golovkin on HBO. You think Golovkin could draw what AJ draws? Ward ain't got no belt to give AJ. He's an old guy. There's nothing really for AJ to gain taking this fight. So if he does take it, how much does Ward expect to get paid? What, does he want 50-50 with AJ? 60-40? No. If Ward at this stage of his life gets 20% against AJ, he's winning. However much that is. His biggest purse is 6.5 million where he was overpaid. I don't know what purse he should get, but he should get the minimum what's acceptable. No more than that. Unless he could tell me who else he can fight and get more in 2025 at 41 years of age. Better call Rock Nation. Even the bag that he made in the second fight with Kovalev, Rock Nation came out of boxing after that because they overpaid Andre Ward. 6.5 million is what he was paid, right? The event did 125,000 buys. A decrease from the first fight, which sold around 160,000 buys. The rematch also saw a lower live gate and overall attendance compared to the first fight. Rock Nation were expecting that the first fight did 160, the next one has to at least do 180, 200. No, it didn't go to plan. It went back in reverse. Rock Nation were out of boxing after that. Kovalev, his purse was dependent on how much pay-per-view buys this fight sold. He didn't have a deal with Rock Nation. He was with Kathy, the Diva Duva. He walked away brassic from that fight. God knows what Kathy Duva was doing. She opted out on a fixed purse for Kovalev for a percentage of the pay-per-views. And they're saying here only 40% of that gate paid for tickets. Pure comps and 125,000 pay-per-view buys. You know what I mean? You got to pay Kathy a piece of that. Main events, they get a piece of that. Your coach gets a piece of that. Training camp gets a piece of that. Sanctioning fees get a piece of that. Andre Ward's just not a big draw. That's the main reason why he's calling out Anthony Joshua. He may see something in Joshua's style, but because of the money Joshua can generate, he just became like a lottery ticket to a lot of fighters. And Andre Ward is one of them fighters. Let's keep it real. That's why Anthony Joshua retorted to the call out in Canelo style. Payday. You want payday? Because Anthony Joshua is one of the few people who can fight somebody who can't draw like Andre Ward and still guarantee a full house. Ward knows what he's doing here. You know, and he's talking about it's a dangerous fight for his legacy. He tried to leave the game with his unbeaten legacy intact. But right now, he's realizing that unbeaten legacy in 2025 is not a current discussion in boxing right now. And he's feeling left out. So yes, he's prepared to throw his legacy and unbeaten record into the ether and gamble. The likely outcome is Ward doesn't get past 3 rounds. Why didn't he declare he's moving up to heavyweight when he said he could beat AJ in 2017 and really go for it? AJ was fighting his mandatories. Povetkin unifying against Klitschko, unifying against Parker. What does he need to call out a light heavyweight who's not even box office in America? Call him out for what? People want to see the Wilder fight. Even the Wilder fans were shutting down Ward when he was talking that shit. Saying nobody wants to see you fight AJ. They want to see Wilder and AJ. Now, as for AJ versus Jake Paul,
I just don't know.
The British Boxing Board of Control are not guaranteeing they would sanction the fight if it took place in the UK. Not a problem, just move it across the pond. Not a problem. I don't often agree with the board, and boxing is a commercial business. But in principle, if they allow our former 2-time heavyweight champion, Olympic gold medalist, to fight somebody whose last win was against someone who hadn't won a fight for how many years in Chavez Jr. and then beat a 60-year-old Mike Tyson before that, they'll be inviting all sorts of issues if they were to give that fight their blessing, especially if it went pear-shaped. Ben Davison said AJ could play with him and then dispatch him whenever he liked, but he's also pouring cold water all over it. Why is AJ getting all these random challenges? Andre Ward, Jake Paul. I'm not going to get into the morality of it because the money always wins out in boxing, as Boxing King Media pointed out today.
What is like the overall plan? Is it money? Is it belts? To be fair, I speak to a lot of fighters and 99% of them tell me they would rather have the money over belts.
But it's the lesser of two evils. Jake Paul probably adds more to the gate, and people would probably pay more to see AJ destroy Jake Paul than they would Andre Ward. Ward is chasing a bag. He's talking about legacy, but he's chasing a bag because he's also tried to get the Jake Paul fight as well.
Y'all keep talking about me fighting Jake Paul, man. Keep talking about that, huh? I'm an old man now. I've been retired 7 years. I ain't touched a boxing gym in 7 years. Why y'all want me to fight Jake? Gotta say my name, though. I can't even entertain it. You gotta say my name. Ain't nobody said my name in 7 years. There's a reason for that.
Why would Jake call out Andre Ward? If we looked at Jake's blueprint so far, I mean, no world title at stake fighting Andre Ward. He's 41 years of age. Let's say if Jake beat Andre Ward, because I'd probably still pick a 41-year-old Andre Ward to beat Jake Paul today. But if Jake upset the odds, is he going to get the credit? Or are they going to say the same thing when he beat Tyson or Chavez? They're past their prime. And Andre Ward is not a draw. An Andre Ward Jake Paul is not the same revenue buster that an AJ fight or a Mike Tyson fight was. There's the facts. Realistic fights for Ward if he was going to try and come back. Jake Paul's not going to give him the fight. I don't think the AJ fight happens. It could happen, but we'll see. Call out Zerdo, Jaya Pataya, Badu Jack or that McCallion dude. Because I doubt Andre can make 12 stone 7. Challenge Bivol or Beterbiev at cruiser. He needs to pick someone more near his weight class. How do you call out AJ and not Alexander Usyk as well? If you think you're all that, go for the ultimate test and call out the champion. But you know, a Zerdo, a Badu Jack fight at cruiser don't get him the bag. It gets him a beating though. I can see Badu Jack giving Andre Ward a bad beating. Even McCallion would probably beat him. But if he really believes he's got something left in the tank, a more realistic goal would be someone closer to his weight class than Anthony Joshua.
Boxing beats and rhymes.
No one can do it better.